Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau, and I am excited to share today's guest with you. So, I've been on this kick recently I've always talked about doing things in little chunks, right? I talk about it in the book, and I always say, start small, you know, you're cluttered and accumulate overnight. Don't expect it to go away. And then we had Ashley Brown on not too long ago for routines and things. And I'm talking all about like little things that you can do. And as I was kind of going on my quest of like different people that had little ideas of ways that you can start to have incremental change, I was introduced to today's guest. So I'm really excited to bring her out. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then I'm going to bring her out to the show. So joining me is Erin Leonard. So Erin is the owner and the creator of a website called Notice the Little Things. So we're going to link up to that. It's an adorable website. In there, she has a bunch of downloads and deliverables. She's a graphic designer by trade, and it shows because all of her stuff is like super pretty. But she provides really what her messaging is providing practical ways for moms to be more intentional about their time and space. So, as we always say, you can really focus on what matters most. In her personal life, she's mom to 3 little kiddos, so different season of life than me, but probably very relatable to a lot of people tuning in today. She, like me, is a fellow coffee lover, so we were connected instantly over our love of coffee and the Enneagram. We're going to talk about that. So Erin is an Enneagram 1. And so I said, can we talk about the Enneagram on our interview? And she's like, yeah. So we're definitely going to do a little bit of talking about what it's like to be an Enneagram 1. And that I think is about sums up. There's a lot more that she can share, but I'd rather it come from her than from me. So without further ado, welcome my new friend, Erin, to the show. Hi, Erin.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am excited to have you here. So I gave our listeners real top line overview for your website, your personal life, mom, all the things. But just in your own words, tell everyone a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Yep. My name is Erin, and I live just outside Indianapolis. And I live with my husband and my 3 children. I have a 10-year-old son, and I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter. And like you said, I write and create at Notice the Little Things. I've had, many jobs really at this point in my life, and kind of have landed here more so as of late, which we can, I'm sure, get into in a little bit. I spent this year, just like most other mom, trying to figure out how in the world to take on all these new roles that were kind of, put on us, and then just trying to make sure that everybody else in my household was healthy and, be happy, and also trying to figure out their new normal. So it's been an interesting year. I feel like we're kind of rising out of it a little bit right now. My kids are back in school, but they get out next week. Actually, here we get out next week.
Yeah, we have a couple of our partners from the SBA Partner Program are out in the Indianapolis area, and I remember them going, like, they're like, our kids are done because you start earlier than us on the East Coast.
We do. Yeah, we start earlier. And so part of me is like, oh gosh, how are they already done? But part of me is also like, it also feels like they've been home all year. So it feels like it'll be different, but really not that much different than this year. So it's been an interesting year. I feel like I've learned a lot. It's been really hard. Parts of it have been really, really hard. I'm glad to be kind of, past it in a sense.
Don't you think, like, and you still have little, so you're like really in the weeds. I have bigs. I have almost 18-year-old and a 20-year-old. So,
Okay.
But I like look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like in hindsight, like if I would have thought that I was climbing Everest of parenting, like looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have, it's a good thing I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
But, like if someone would have told you, you're going to have to like pandemic parent and pandemic educate your kids and all those things, you'd be like, are you for real? But then when you're just thrust into it, you just figure it out. And then you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Absolutely. Yeah. In March, I mean, if someone would have told me when they first got out in March, when in my head, I was like, nah, this will be like a month. Well, I'm sure this we'll find a way to get this under control. If somebody would have said, oh no, this will be almost your entire year, I
Mm.
don't think anyone would have been able to mentally handle that at the time. So it was probably good that it was delivered to us in small doses. But so you alluded to, I think that my undergrad degree was in graphic design, but I have a master's degree in teaching. So that came in handy this year because my kids were home and I was their teacher for most of the year. Now I say that their teachers were their teachers. They were, I have never had a greater appreciation for my children's teachers and their patience and their ability to just go with it. They have been amazing. So that did help that I, have a background in teaching this year. But gosh, it still was just so hard. Sometimes it felt like it didn't matter actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes it felt like, okay, this is helpful. And sometimes neighbors would say like, oh, this must be so much easier for you. And I'm like, ooh, I never like wanted to homeschool. That was never in my, I think I have friends that homeschool and I think it's wonderful, but it just was never in what I was going to do. So
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, it's funny because you were talking about like, again, looking at this, looking at, like you said, if someone would have told you this is a year, like you were like, I can do it because you kind of saw the finish line in our minds. I think we
Right.
all were like, the finish line's right around the corner. Like it's
Mhm.
just right around the corner. It's just another week. It's just another couple weeks. And then that just kept going on and on. And it's interesting because I look, and I think that's part of the reason why people just are able to keep going, right? They're
Yes.
able to
Oh
dig
yeah.
deep. You're able to dig deep because you're like, I'm in the home stretch. And I kind of feel like that has some parallels to just your business and really the foundation and kind of the messaging. So can you just talk a little bit about your website and how you even like kind of took your background, your teaching background,
Mhm.
graphics background, like how did it all just kind of fit together?
Yeah. Yes, of course. It definitely, it really notice the little things is kind of based on gratitude and this daily gratitude routine. But this year that came into play so very much because especially for my kids, because they do it too. And I have things on the blog that are for children as well to help do this. And this year it became even more apparent. Like I was glad that we had already been sort of practicing this, like how to always find the good in every situation, even if it feels like there can't possibly be any. And this year, really, I thought we were like okay at that, and this year it was like really challenged us to get a lot better at it. But yeah, so the blog's called Notice the Little Things, and I help busy moms, kind of in a sentence, I help busy moms live their most grateful life. And I feel like that could be a lot of things for a lot of different people, right? So I feel like as moms, it is just so easy to spend your whole day pulled in a million directions because everything feels urgent. And then you think you can set out with the best intentions, right? In the morning. Today, I'm going to either take some time to myself or take a second to look around and notice my blessings or just call a friend or text somebody. And you say you're going to do it. And then at the end of the day, you realize you really just responded to everything that was calling for your attention. And that's just what we do. There's really no way to get away from that. That's just kind of life. But so with the blog, I kind of help busy moms make sense of this. So the blog, it focuses on different ways to practice daily gratitude, make this work in your life. Therefore kind of see the benefits for it, and then also kind of streamline your routines and your systems so that you have more time for the things that matter that you kind of set out to do in the morning but then don't necessarily get to. And it's been kind of a crazy journey, I guess I would say, for the blog. It's the idea for it actually started in college, and this will kind of go back to what you were talking about, like small little things. I was a junior in college. Now I want to say I was a senior. I think I was a junior in college. And it was Lent. It was time for the Christian season of Lent. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do for Lent? And I usually just would give up chocolate because my mom and my sisters and I would always give up chocolate. And that never really, first of all, I always cheated. And aside from that, I also never really, there wasn't a lot of spiritual connection. It was something to do and it was hard, but it didn't really grow my faith life very much. So I don't know why, for whatever reason that year, I decided instead I was going to sit down every night and write a list of 10 little things from the day that made me laugh or smile or otherwise, that I otherwise would have looked over had I just gone about my busy day. And I don't know why I picked 10. Sometimes I thought, oh, I could have picked 3. That would have made it a little bit easier. But I picked 10 and I started doing it. And I emailed the list every night to like, I don't know, 10 to 12 people to keep myself accountable, friends and like my mom and my dad. And a super strange thing happened. So I would email my 10 little things out. And I kind of explained, like, this is what I'm doing. Hopefully, maybe this will bring a smile to your face at the very least. It'll keep me accountable. And then the people on my list started replying to the email with their own lists of little things. So then I was making my list each day, and then I was getting to read other people's lists. And I was hearing from them what a difference it was making for their overall outlook. And I was experiencing it myself as well. And then the email list, because this is back before Facebook or anything easy to, contact people on, the email list, I'm like trying to remember how this happened exactly, but other people asked if they could be on the email list. And so people were being added, like friends at school or friends who had somehow said something about it to someone else. And so the email list just got bigger and bigger, and more people started to do this, or would come up to me and be like, oh, these are the little things that I noticed today. And I just thought, this is really kind of incredible. It is so neat. Something I started out doing selfishly, thinking like, how can I maybe make some more connections with God during the day, notice his hand and his blessings more often, turned into something that mattered to other people. And then I thought, this matters to other people. It was just kind of a light bulb moment. But I was in college, and I had only set out to do it for 40 days. So I did it for the 40 days. And then I sent an email that said that I was going to go ahead and, stop sending out the emails and clogging everyone's inbox. And then I got replies that were like, don't stop doing it. Keep doing it, keep sending the emails. And I thought, well, okay. And then it was really not about my list at all. I think my emails were the reminder to other people to kind of like notice those things in their own lives and remember to do it. So I continued it through the next year of college. The email list kind of grew. And then, fast forward a few years, I went to grad school. I would do it off and on. My email got, your college email goes away. And then I don't know, I'm trying to remember whether I built back the list, but then maybe like 5 years later, I thought, oh, that was fun. That was really fun when that like small community kind of was doing that and blogging had just kind of started to be a thing. It was probably a thing before that, but people were starting to like read other people's blogs.
What year is this? What year was?
I'm trying to remember. I want to say like 2006.
Okay.
Would that make sense? I think that would make sense in my timeline. That would make sense. So I thought I'm gonna make the little things into a blog, and all I'm gonna do is write my daily lists on there, so that I don't have to send an email out anymore. Because people would occasionally say, hey, do you still do that thing? Like, do you still send out those lists that you used to send out? And I would say like, oh no, like, I don't know. It needed to kind of graduate from an email list. So I put it in blog format, and I didn't know much about blogging. I didn't really know that people did it as a business. I thought it was more like a hobby. And so I would write my list and people would visit, but I didn't know how to keep track of who was visiting or really do much with it. But the feedback that I kept getting was, we love doing this. I love daily gratitude. I love the thought of it. You see a pillow that says enjoy the little things, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do that today. And then the day happens and you don't do it. And that's the feedback that I kept getting, was like, I love the idea of this, but I don't know how to do it every day. I don't know how to remember to do it. I don't know how to incorporate it into my real life. I don't know how to make it a daily routine, because I had kept it up all these years. I just wasn't always emailing it out to people. And that's when I kind of thought, okay, all right, what is mine to do here? Like, how can I help people be able to have the time and the space mentally or physically or however to actually do this in their normal life? Because everyone that does it seems to see the benefit. But just because we see the benefit of something doesn't mean it's like, there's a great benefit to working out, but I don't always work out. I don't work out most days. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. Like, it's good for you. It improves your outlook,
Yeah,
but
100%.
your real life is happening. And especially now as a mom, like the way it has served me as a mom, I just know that way back in college, God was like, I'm going to give you this thing and you're going to need it later. And I'm so thankful for that. And so now the blog is more about like, what is mine to do to help other people actually make this happen in real actual life with kids running around or a really busy job or a million activities to go to, which, we were kind of off from this year, but we're starting to get back into.
But what's interesting about that is, I think originally when quarantine hit, and I even had some shows talking about this where I was like, this is going to be great because it's going to take us, we're not going to be running again. When my kids were younger, I was running every night. Like there was no family dinners. We were running between the soccer field, the basketball court, the music lesson, whatever, fill in the blank. And we were like, oh, it's going to be so nice. But I think we really just went up substituting for different types of busy, or busy types of other obligations. So it may have looked a little different, but it didn't. We were just swapping. We weren't
Yes.
really removing. We were just swapping it out.
Yeah, I remember thinking that. Like, I was so in the beginning of all of it. Yes, wasn't in the car all the time, but I was so busy making decisions. There were so many decisions to make about what you were going to do and who you're going to see and what you're going to let your kids do. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I feel like our kind of purposes or passions align in the like starting small, like very small things and very small changes can make very big differences. And like anyway, I have seen on your blog and in your podcast, like any way I can help someone else do that more easily makes me really excited.
I agree. And I want you to elaborate on this a little bit because I think where a lot of people get hung up, and I talk to people all the time, is people will say, like you said, I know what I'm supposed to. I know what I'm supposed to eat, or I know I'm supposed to exercise, or I know I'm supposed to declutter this. Like I know I'm not supposed to have this. But either A, I lack the motivation, but motivation isn't enough. And I talk a lot about motivation, like in the second half of the show, when we kind of get into the Enneagram stuff. I mean, I think motivation is a big key. You have to have the buy-in to want to do this. But motivation in and of itself is not enough. You need a strategy. And I think where a lot of people feel defeated or deflated or whatever is because they're like, okay, I know that this fill in the blank would be good for me physically, emotionally, financially, whatever. And I want to do it, but I don't know how to do it. I don't have the tactical skills of like, where do I begin? And for so many people, they're either so overwhelmed emotionally or with physical stuff that that's just another, like you said, that's just another level of decision fatigue. So walking them through that from a practical standpoint, giving them like, okay, here's how you can start. Here's how you can begin to do it, I think is really what people need. And I think you do this. So I was wondering if you could kind of just walk through like some of the I don't know if templates are the right word, but what are some of the things that you offer? Because it's not just a blog where it's a place where you're journaling your thoughts and people can go, which is where it started. It's now turned into really part of your business, like part of who you are and what you do and how you make money and, serving people, like part of your own personal mission. So could you talk a little bit about some of the more tangible things of how you get people to actually do this?
Yes. Yeah, I know that's funny. And it's even so funny for me now to call it a business because it is a business, but I'm not very business minded. I'm not very strategic. So that's funny to me. I'm like more on the creative side. Well, I don't know. It's weird because I am an Enneagram one, but I'm like a perfectionist, but then I'm also like, I have a creative side. So it's kind of a weird balance between those two.
Well, ones do. I'm looking at I have a whole like whiteboard thing of where it looks like a mad scientist because it talks about all the connection points. And again, and so ones have a connection point to 4 on the Enneagram.
I'm just learning about those connections. Yeah. I would love to hear more about that. Yeah.
So we could, so it is, and that's one of the things I love about the Enneagram is it's not just so static. It's not just so fluid. Like I'm a perfectionist. So that means I'm in this little box of whatever. It's, you have these touch points, these connection points to all of the different numbers and characteristics. It's just at the end of the day, your core motivation, resonates in that oneness.
Yes. Okay. And I know we'll get
we'll touch on
into
that
a little bit more.
Exactly.
Well, I guess the point of that was like, I never really thought I'm going to start a business around this. I thought I'm going to start this blog. I'm going to write these lists that will remind people and show people all the ways a little thing can look. It can be such a small thing, like just like turning the coffee maker on in the morning, or the sound of a lawnmower to tell you that it's spring, or even like, your daughter right next to you as you work, reminding you why you're working. It can be so many like very, very small things. And so that's part of why I continue to write the lists on there and encourage other people to write the list so that people can see, like, we often are looking for these grand moments, and we're also often waiting for everything to line up just right. And then we will be grateful, notice what's going well, feel that kick back, put your feet up, relaxed feeling. And we're waiting, like we spend a lot of time waiting. I think especially as moms, but everybody waiting for that time. And when it doesn't happen, because that doesn't happen in real life very often to any of us. If it does, hats off, because it does not happen to me. Then we just continue to wait to feel that feeling that we're looking to feel of like being grateful or content or at peace or whatever it is. So that's why one of the reasons I continue to do the list is just to kind of show all the ways a little thing can look. But then also there, you're right, I have posts on there that kind of walk moms through ways that they can simplify home life a bit. Because so what we want, I think, as moms is we want to get to that point where things are actually lining up for a change and you have a second to take a deep breath. But the fact is that before that all happens, there's reasons to be grateful and things that if you looked around and just kind of looked up above the chaos, you could pick out. And then there are ways you can simplify your home, your routines, and the way that you do things. So then on the other side, you also have more time for things that matter. So you can do this when, things aren't simplified or streamlined, but you will also have more time for it when it is. So the products there's a lot of free resources on there. You can subscribe and get access. There's a password for the free resources. And those are meant to kind of give you kind of like a basic foundation for like, if you wanted to do a daily gratitude list, there's lots of different lists and designs that you can print out. I'm still, if you saw I call this my desk. This is my dining room, but this is my desk. This is my office, even though it's the dining room, because I can keep an eye on all the people,
all the moving parts,
Yeah. So I'm still very much like a paper list, pencil type. So you can print them out and write them that way. And then there are resources for just getting started on small projects in your home. And then there are resources on there there's a little shop, and there are gratitude journals there. There's leveled gratitude journals for kids. So there's one for younger kids, 4 to 7-year-olds. There's one for 6 to 12-year-olds, and there's one for 11 to 15-year-olds. And that's where it's fun, because then it's like my teaching and my graphic design get to come together.
I was going to say it's all coming together.
Yeah. And so I get to kind of create these things that I know are age appropriate and will kind of move families through this. And then there's gratitude journals on there for moms. And there are some other resources on there too, like some different daily things that you can do to kind of try to incorporate gratitude into your real life. And I keep using the word gratitude, and we kind of all know what that means, but like for kids especially, and this goes for moms too, but I get asked a lot of times, well, like, what does that really mean? And I mean, what it means in my house is less complaining, is kids who get along because they have written lists about the things that they love about each other. And it's kids who, like, emotionally, I tell them something all year. We had to deliver disappointing news, right? This is a good
Mhm.
example this past year. But it was, I mean, I am not good at a lot of things, but delivering news like that, I did see in my kids who practice this, oh, mom has a gratitude blog, like, let's write a list. They are okay at the disappointing news. They can recover pretty quickly and see the good and the benefits above the hard, which has taken, we practice, that's why. But that's what that looks like for moms for their kids. Is gratitude kind of leads. I have learned in my unofficial study of this for 20 some years that's what that looks like in kids. They don't complain as much. My kids complain, okay, they do, but they recover more quickly than they used to. And they do get along. I don't know if that is not all because of gratitude, I'm sure. But they do have a lot of opportunities to have to, like, pick the good things out in each other and, like, focus on them and see them. And I feel like their problem solving is pretty good, because when you can see the positive options and you have a problem to solve, you can see the positive and the negative options because you've been kind of practicing that. Then when you come upon a problem, you have more choices at your fingertips to choose from. And these are all things that I never would have expected out
Well, I
of
think
gratitude.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think a lot of what you're saying is really, and I talk about this as well, and I'll tell you real quick before we go to break, about my own gratitude project that I did a couple years ago. I think it has to do with a couple things. I think a couple takeaways that I wrote down was, first of all, it shifts your perspective. Like you said, when there's a lot that is not going the way that we expected, that doesn't seem to be going well. We have a lot of loss. We have a lot of isolation. We have all this. It's very easy to pick out the negative. And I think just unfortunately in human nature, it's very easy to kind of go to that. But if you are intentional about digging deep and looking at it, then it becomes, you're building up that muscle. You get
Yep.
that muscle memory of, okay, so what's the good thing? Is like, okay, so I can do school in my pajamas, or I can, sleep an extra 15 minutes. Like you find the little wins
Yep.
of in amidst, you're not diluting the loss or minimizing it,
No.
but it's shifting the perspective. And it has to do with mindset. And I've seen, even before the pandemic, I've seen parents who, our kids are watching. So for anybody out there, obviously, your kids are watching and they're picking up your cues. And so if you're going in there and you're coming in there trying to not be like Sally Sunshine, but really, like you said, being intentional about saying, you know what, things might not be going great, but we're going to do this, or we might be feeling overwhelmed, but this, if we do this together, it'll give us some opportunity to, have family time, or whatever you want to say. You're leading by example, and our kids are picking up on those cues. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you look at your kids where they can, how they might get along, or how you might see certain things. Of course, your kids are kids, and they're, gonna, they're gonna have good days and bad days and do certain things, but you've set this tone. You set this tone of kind of like, this is how we respond to things. Because like you said, we can only control what the hand we've been dealt, and
Mm-hmm.
how you respond to that is really important. And I love the gratitude. I just want to say real quick before we go to break. So I did a couple years ago, um, a daily gratitude. I did it in 2018, and I called it my 365-day gratitude project. And I did it on Instagram. And it was every day I would just snap. And I'm not like the photographer person, but I went back and I said, I am going to snap a picture and give a little description. And it could be a person, it could be a thing. of what I'm grateful for. And all of a sudden people, and I just use a hashtag like 365 day gratitude, and people, and I told people, and I purposely did it on Instagram because I felt like it was accountable. If I like announced I'm going to be doing this, that like gave me that
To do it.
accountability. And people were, I was there was so much engagement surrounding it. And, it started like, I'm grateful for my husband and I'm grateful for my kid. And I would explain why and give very specifics. And then there were days where I would take a picture. I remember one day I took a picture of my doorknob. And I said, I'm grateful for locks on doors because I'm about to
Mhm.
murder everybody in my house. And I just locked myself in the bath. And I literally wrote the gratitude journal. I'm like, I'm grateful that I have a place that I can go to escape right now
Mhm.
because right now everybody's on my nerves. But this is my gratitude for today, and
No, I love that. Yeah. I mean, when you do it every day, it makes you get past the normal, like, I'm really grateful that the sun's out. And these are all great things to be grateful for. But if you've said the nice day, you've said the, I don't know, whatever
well,
it is, clean
that's when you
sheets,
said
you've
10.
said
I was
the,
like, when you were like 10, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a
Mhm.
lot to do for 40 days. Like,
Yeah, it was at first. It felt like, oh my gosh. And then after about a week, it was like I could just
yeah,
notice them in ways that I never thought I would before. And when you get in, like you said, like the doorknob, like on your first lists, you're not going to have the doorknob. But
no.
like on day 10, where you're like, oh my gosh, I really have to like, okay, I have to dig deep. What am I really grateful for today? It really does build up that store where then when things aren't going great, you're kind of like, okay, but and that's another
Yes.
word I like to use. You alluded to this, and this is something that came up. I Because this all started during Lent, each year during Lent.
I want you to just hang on 1 second. I want to hear this, but we have to go to break.
Sounds
So
good.
let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll pick right up about the
Perfect.
but and hang on.
Okay.
All right, Erin, I'm sorry that I cut you off. We are back. I know we're getting so into this that Don is sending me messages. We have to go to break. We have to go to break. So I apologize for cutting you off mid sentence,
Okay.
but definitely want to hear this. So yes, I love this. So go ahead. You were starting to say about changing language, kind of
Yeah,
how
I
refacing your
liked
language.
what you said. Um, my kids are driving me crazy, and I'm really grateful for this doorknob, right? So I was saying that this came up a lot this past year. In Lent each year, I kind of run a group, and it's called Growing Gratitude. And you can choose to be a part of the Facebook group, or you can choose to just purchase the materials, and it'll take you through 40 days of different ways of practicing gratitude. It's not just a list of 10 each day. In fact, there really isn't. There's never just a list of 10. But one of the things that kind of came up this year in the group more than others was this, like, this is so hard. I can't find anything to be grateful for about it, or this is so difficult. Um, Using the word but instead of the word and, trying to replace the hard with the good, or like pave it over with the good.
Mm,
Um, and what I was kind of trying to explain to everybody is it can be hard, and you can find things that you're grateful for. Both things can
absolutely.
exist at the same time. And I think you speak a lot about that too, like in organization, or in the ways that we do our homes. Like, there are parts of my home that are really organized, and there are parts that are not, and I'm still organized.
Mm-hmm. And there's options. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I love that. And I've said that to my clients a lot of times
Mhm.
when I'm working with them and they're frustrated. And a lot of it is just self-inflicted, right? They feel either embarrassed or ashamed, like I've gotten, how did I get this way or whatever. And I said, it's okay, here you are. And it's great because there's all these resources, there's all these options. So okay, here's where we are, but we have the option to change that path moving forward. And
Yes.
so whether it's popping in and listening to a podcast or going to a blog and downloading some, helpful, inspirational gratitude, templates or whatever it is. There are ways that even in our own struggles, wherever that are, and sometimes our struggles are big and real, not that anybody's
Mhm.
aren't real, I'm not minimizing, but like there could be health related things. I have a friend of mine whose son um is was diagnosed with cancer and has been battling going through treatment. And I said to her, and hopefully, he's doing well and whatnot. And I said to her one day, I know this is a really hard road, but I'm so grateful that you have this one-on-one time with him. Cause they were like, she sent her other kid, like she had littles in the house. And so they didn't want with COVID and whatever. So she has had, while he was undergoing radiation, they were together, just the two of them,
Mhm.
like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I said, when would, what an, not that you would want to switch places with her, but just the fact that having, this time with your 22-year-old who, when would you normally be with 365, 24/7. And she's like, "You're totally right." So I was like, "Lucky you." It wasn't that.
Mhm.
I mean,
No, yeah.
obviously, I'm not you don't want to change places, but you want to be able to find these little nuggets where you can. And I think that has a huge impact. So, wherever you are in your life, whether it's you're struggling with clutter or you're struggling with debt or you're struggling with your weight or exercise or just feeling overwhelmed in general, parenting is exhausting and unappreciative. So to start to say, find those little things. I'm grateful I was able to get
Mhm.
out for a 15-minute walk, or I was grateful
Yep.
that I was able to have 15 minutes before my kids got up or after they went to bed to just sit and have a glass of wine. Like those are
Yes.
those are the little things that I think
Yep, and
really
they're the
do.
ones they like, it's so small, but that, like, little noticing that tiny little thing, it, like, carries you for the next hour or whatever it is.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
feel like knowing yourself, like what you were saying about, like, someone with, organizing or projects or something in your home, like, knowing not giving yourself grace, like, saying, "I need to start somewhere. I'm gonna start small. I'm either gonna do it myself or I'm gonna ask for help."
Mhm.
But then knowing yourself, like, there's so many ideas out there and there are so many blogs out there, which is wonderful, but not doing something just because it looks pretty for someone else. Like, I've done that before. I've organized something and I'm like, "Ooh, this looks really pretty." No one uses it well. It is messy in a second. And I learned that lesson, kind of, a while back about organizing, at least, that it might look pretty somewhere in a post or in a picture, but like, if you don't know yourself and how you're going to use things, then you might end up with a product that just doesn't work for you. So, like, being really honest with what's going to work. I'm sure you run into this a lot. What's going to work and what's not. Like, I'm thinking about, like, when I organized my kids' school papers, um there were all these, like, cute little files, and I'm also not, like, super sentimental, so I was kind of like, "Ooh, should I be keeping more things than I'm keeping?" And I got over that part, but I thought, like, no, I'm not going to do that. I will not. I won't do that. So I just have, like, one bin for each year, and everything goes, and it's, like, small and it's in a stack. But there were so many pretty things I remember passing up, and that was one of the ways that lesson I was kind of, like, reinforced, like, these are all really pretty, but I am not going to do that.
Yeah, and I think we see that we totally see that a lot. And I guess, you touch on a few things that are pretty relevant. I think that this could also be like a nice segue to like introducing kind of where the Enneagram piece to it,
Mhm.
in that there's not a one size fits all approach. We talk about that all the time, and what works for you and what gives you that sense of accomplishment, and it does not necessarily translate to somebody else. So
Right.
even if something is aesthetically pretty, or you're like, this is the way that we should do it, doesn't mean that that's going to really translate productively to your kids.
Mhm.
And I see that. It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I suspect, I don't know, you're not supposed to type people, but I suspect this person's an Enneagram 1, and she's like my age, but she started having kids a little bit later. So she's got kids like younger, like your kids' age, not a little, but like 11, 12. And she's very much like, it should be done this way, and this is how we do it, because she has that that perfectionist drive, and it has served her well in life, but you can tell that her kids are just wired differently. And it's
Mhm.
having that awareness that is, what avenues they're going to take and the strategies that are going to apply to help them become more productive are going to be a different path than
Mhm.
what it is for you as an Enneagram 1 who has this lens that you see the world.
Yes.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
So you said it earlier, you're an Enneagram 1, which is someone that identifies as being either a perfectionist or improver. Some people are using the language, but you know, you're somebody that thinks with your gut. That is kind of the triad. That's what you lead with. You lead
Mhm.
with doing. So you're a very doing person. Those are characteristics. Um, Ones are great. A lot of my fellow organizers are ones. I'm not a one, but a lot of people, and it would make sense because you're very detail oriented. You're process driven. Great, like I said, great attention to detail. So those are all really, really strong characteristics, positive characteristics of an Enneagram 1. And I would like you to speak to it because obviously you can speak to it better than I can since you are a 1. Where I've heard a lot of ones struggle is really with that whole inner critic and not measuring up, where ones have this like voice, not voices, but a voice inside them that really is critiquing what they're doing, which is helping to drive that need for perfection. Is that accurate? Is that an
That is
accurate way to?
accurate. Yes, it's
Okay.
accurate. It's interesting because it's what I thought from when I hear about an 8, I also identify somewhat with that number. And then and I'm also new, I will say, to the
Yeah.
Enneagram. I've been interested in it for a while, but just trying to kind of find time to do some more research and read the books. And then I was reading, I don't know, a couple days ago, I think even that ones often mistype themselves or are mistyped as 8s. But
Mhm.
one of the defining, and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm just very much diving into it
Yeah.
now. One of the, you know, defining differences is that inner critic. And I 100% have that
And it's
without a doubt.
and it's interesting. And when I was doing my research for the framework that I developed, um, I was asking, of course, my family's my guinea pig for everything. I mean, I did a
Mhm.
big focus group and all that, but I always start with my in real life, my real life friends and family.
Yep.
And one of my closest friends is a 1. I didn't type her. And I was like, I started doing my research and giving her this, and I thought she was 1, but she said to me, she's like, "This is me to a T, like
Mhm.
to a T." And I'm an 8, and I can tell you right now, I do not have that inner critic at all. I
Yeah.
don't. Now my daughter is a 4, and 4s also have an inner critic. It's different. They have voices. It's different. It's a different inner critic, but there's always this, I'm not measuring up. And I was asking her if she had that, and she was like, "Yeah, doesn't everybody?" And I was like, "No." And she
Yeah.
was like, "Really?" And all of the ones in my life that I talked to were like, "Yeah, it's a thing." And also, and you could tell me this too, your need for perfectionism is about yourself, not so much about other people, but it really is
No.
about your own drive for perfection.
Yes. Yes. And I would say that inner critic is more a measure against my own self and not other
Correct.
people. I'm not
Right. You're not
as
sitting in
comparing
judgment.
myself to other people. It's more like just comparing myself to myself. Yeah, the inner critic, sometimes it's worse than it. What's funny is, I just have recently kind of told my mom about the Enneagram, and she knows about it
Mhm.
because um, of what she does. But when I was younger, before all the language came out for this, she would say, turn your imaginary audience off. And she would call it,
So
she
good.
knew that I had that going on
That's so
without me
good.
ever telling her. And I mean, my mom is wonderful. So I have 3 sisters. So there's 4 of us girls in my family. And my mom and my dad are both wonderful. But I think it is so interesting now when I hear inner critic, I'm like, oh, the imaginary audience that my mom used to tell me that I needed to, make quiet.
Isn't it interesting because I also, before I had Enneagram, and that's one of the other things that I love about the Enneagram. It's not labeling, because people are like, I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be. And I say it's really just about naming things, so that
Mhm.
once you have language around anything, then you can start to articulate it and start to develop strategies that are going to help you either enhance the good part or minimize the not great parts.
Yep.
And so what in the framework that I do with kind of connecting the dots, where does the intersection between how people relate with clutter, physical clutter, emotional clutter,
Mhm.
calendar clutter, how does that tie in with your own God-given Enneagram strengths, right? Because your Enneagram, you're born with your type. And again, there's all these
Yes.
through lines to these other types, but your motivation isn't going to change. But the strategies that you apply can change. And that's the beauty of it. So you're going to look at, for example, one of the things that I love to explain, or I like to use as an example, is about like procrastination. So procrastination is one of the greatest clutter pitfalls that I talk about in my work. And, there's a lot of reasons why people procrastinate. So when you look at, in my earlier work, it would just say, okay, here are 5 clutter pitfalls. Which ones do you align with? And that's
Mhm.
great. But that's really only the first layer. The second layer, where the Enneagram comes into play, is okay, so you've got a bunch of people standing in front of me that all procrastinate, but they all procrastinate for different reasons. So the motivation and the strategy to get them to not white knuckle, but to say, okay, I'm not going to procrastinate, I'm going to work through this, is going to be different. So one of the things, and I'll be interested to ask you this as somebody that is all about little things.
Uh-huh.
One of my strategies that I talk about all the time is about doing things in small little incremental, like 15 minutes. You don't have to tackle the whole garage at once. Tackle a drawer, tackle this. And a lot of the ones who I have interviewed have said where they struggle is they like to come to completion.
Oh,
So
yes.
they don't want to leave a project. If they can't do it all from start to finish, they would rather just wait
Mhm.
until they can. Where I'm just like, we'll just do a little bit here, do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, because not everybody has time to do the whole thing at once. Yeah, in a perfect
Right.
world, you would. But realistically, we're going in a million different directions. So if you can just do this shelf of the pantry today and come back and do the next shelf tomorrow, but the ones are like, that would be like nails on a chalkboard. So
Yes. I
they,
empathize with that so much. Yes. Yeah, no, that's exactly how it is. That is how I feel, but I know that about myself enough and know um believe enough in the starting small mentality. I also have, so a lot of what I do as far as like, so as a one, I walk into a room, so they say, and see everything that could be improved. And that's true. And so I kind of think in my own way, and I think that, gratitude and little things can benefit all different numbers, but in my own way, noticing all the things that are good as they are and can be blessings as they are is
mm,
one way that I kind of combat that motivation. Or what would we say, like characteristic,
yeah,
or
I was going to
that's
say,
what I
I
still
would,
struggle with the
yeah,
Enneagram,
yeah.
like
And I
what
think,
terms we give these things.
yeah, and I think it's really about one of the characteristics, of
Okay.
where, you have a tendency, like we have natural
Tendency.
tendencies,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So, I know for me as an 8, I have a tendency, I can walk in and see like this could be streamlined, this could be done there.
Hmm.
And I will have a natural tendency to want to take charge. And I want to take charge not because I don't try, like I just know I can probably do it quicker and faster and more
Hmm.
efficiently. So it's not personal. It's not like, Erin, I don't think you're competent, but I'll just look at this and go, oh, I think this could be done so much easier. Like you're making it so hard.
Yes.
But what I've learned is that's really not mine to do. Like you talk about that. And it's
Yes.
really that, is this mine to do?
Yes.
Do I, just because I can lead a bunch of different committees or groups, or I can do this, doesn't mean that I should.
Yes.
And again, it's not my place. It's not always my place. And so
Mhm.
that's something that I think it's just bringing that awareness and then what you do with it. So my advice to anybody, again, with regard to the Enneagram, and what I love about the Enneagram is it's the Enneagram and, right? You can look at the Enneagram and your marriage, Enneagram and parenting, Enneagram and clutter, which is kind of the lane that I look at the
Mhm.
Enneagram lens, is it's not used as an excuse, right? It's about awareness. This is my natural tendency. But if I want to build up this muscle I'm not really using, what
Mhm.
strategies can I put in to place to make me more balanced in that area? Because
Yep.
really the work that I do has to go, and we don't have enough time. Will be a 2-hour interview and I'm not Dak Shepard. But it's really all about like thinking, feeling, and doing. And how do we kind of tip those scales? Where as a one, you're really strong in doing. But
Mhm.
you will also fluctuate between between feeling and doing. How do I feel about this? What do I do? So for a one, if I was working with a one or coaching a one, my advice, and this is what I talk about, is how do we bring a productive thinking? How do we really, again, quiet your imaginary audience? I wrote it down. Like, how do you quiet your imaginary audience so that you can think productively about how to handle a situation, as opposed to just relying on your gut or your heart?
Yes,
So,
yes, I know. It's all so interesting. And I think like everybody's start small can also be different. Like my start small is probably maybe as a one a little bit bigger than maybe somebody else's start
yes.
small. So I don't know that I fully answered that question you asked me, like how would I, like I don't like things that are unfinished at all. Um and so my response to that is to organize in threes. So I will usually, like my start small is like, okay, I have this list of 80 things that I think need to be improved in my house or systems or drawers or cabinets or whatever it is, because I really do thrive on no clutter. Like I can think better, I can parent better, I can be a better wife, a better friend, all those things without physical clutter. But my list is long as a one. And I don't know, probably just as a mom. But so I will pick three projects and think over the next reasonable amount of time, not day, but like
Mhm.
3 weeks or a month, I will tackle these three projects. And then I will rest in those for a little while, walk by, open that closet door, be excited that it's organized, and just kind of like that is done. The rest of my list is not done, but that's okay for a little bit because my start small was in threes instead of just one drawer. Now, that's not to say that sometimes I don't just quick organize the drawer,
Sure.
but to kind of combat my oneness. Um, and that actually, what's funny is I don't have a lot of like super popular posts on Pinterest, but that and another are my two most popular ones. About I've written a few times about
Send them
organizing
to
in
me so
threes.
we can include them in the show notes. Send
Okay,
me
I
the
can do that.
those
Yeah, and
two.
I'm kind of that's down the line, but that is going to be one of my next kind of product offerings is going to be
Awesome.
about kind of around that topic. So I'm excited about it. But yeah, I mean, I think we all can take what we are, pitfalls of what we are
Mhm.
and our strengths of what we are, and like what, like you said, we can work with those motivations.
Absolutely. Well, Erin, I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours and
I know
hours.
this is fun.
Um, we're gonna take one more quick break, and then I'm just gonna do our wrap-up questions. But before we do, tell our listeners, and again, of course, we will include all of this in our show notes, but just let our listeners
Okay.
know the best place to connect up with you, whether it's on social, your website, all the things.
Yep. The website is super easy. It's noticethelittlethings.com. And then Facebook is at Notice the Little Things. Instagram is at Notice the Little Things blog. And Pinterest is at Happy Noticing. It all has the
It's
word
okay.
noticing in it, all of it.
Yes.
But when things are taken, you have to get creative about what you're going to use.
I gotcha. It's all good. And that's why we'll have links to everything. So no
Okay.
worries, people. All right, we're going to take one more quick break.
Okay.
Then we're going to come back and just do our wrap up questions. So
Great.
sit tight. All right, Erin, this has been so much fun. I have so many ideas for even future collaboration. So we'll have to
Ooh.
continue our conversation for sure. Um, I always like to ask our guests 3 questions. The
Okay.
first question has to do with inspiration because obviously our guests are inspiring and motivating people just by the work that they're doing and what you're giving to our listeners. What books or resources have you read throughout your life? It could be something
Mhm.
recent, could be something old, that's really been like kind of life giving for you in terms of, having an impact.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I love to read. I often read for fun more than for well, I shouldn't say more than for learning. In the morning, I'll read for like learning, and at night, I'll read for fun.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll go with recent. I recently read The Lazy Genius Way. Have you read that?
No.
Um, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's
Okay.
Kendra Adachi is the author, and
Okay.
it is it's like what we're talking about, but just kind of a different take on it. Ways to make more time and space for the things that matter. But she has like a 13-step process, and she's really big on starting small. I think you would really like it.
I'm totally I
Um,
get so many great book recommendations from our guests.
Oh,
So
you
I
should post those. I would love to see the
Oh, okay, that's a
book
great idea.
recommendations
Oh,
because I love to read, and if I can like go to one spot and yeah, it was so good. My sister and I both read it, and we just were constantly the concepts were simple and you could do them in real life. Anyways, I highly recommend it. It was and she's hilarious. I mean, I was laughing out loud as I read the
awesome.
book.
Oh, I'm
So,
so
yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
And then our last 2 questions, and this might be a little tough for one, but we're gonna give it a shot because it could be super lighthearted.
Okay.
Is in this season of your life, where do you feel like you're thriving when it comes to organization, and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess? And I know
Uh,
ones they don't really feel like a hot mess or they don't want to admit it, but I don't think you're much of a hot mess. But
oh,
it could be something small and little.
no, my hot mess list would be way longer than as a one. My hot mess list is really long and my organized list is short. No, it's not. I'm organized in the things that we need to use and access every day. But I've worked at it. I've put the systems in place and taught my kids how to do it. And I'm very organized in my kids' chores, actually. My kids know what chores they need to do each day and they have to do them and they do them. And that in that way I feel organized there.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yep. And I'm a
Eh,
hot mess. I mean, I would say probably I'm a hot mess in my head. Like I could probably present more, maybe look more organized than I am in my head. It's a lot of jumbled trying to figure out a million different things at once and fast.
Yeah.
Um, so it would probably like if you could see in my head, you'd be surprised that I was any kind of organized.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, that's so good because again, the purpose of me using these questions, and I've used them really since the start of my show, is because we all have these perceptions of what we see of people, whether
Yep.
it's through Instagram or even in real life, where you think all these people have it all together, and everybody's got their hot mess minutes or moments or
Mhm.
whatever. And so, I ask this question just to continue to humanize people because again, to look at you on the outside and to look at all the things that you're doing, it's so easy for people to just come up with this narrative that in every aspect. And I think it's important to remind everybody that, we all have a part of ourselves that we just, we're a work in progress.
Yes.
So,
Yes. I mean, I stand by that 100%. I agree.
well, Erin Leonard, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on our show and talking all about the little things, which are really the big things. And again, you and I are going to connect up because I have like all these ideas
I can't
in
wait.
my
This has
head.
been
So,
a lot of fun. I loved talking about this. I just think you have a great perspective on all of it. I like all the ways that we kind of think similarly and all the things that, I have all these notes that you are teaching me. So I appreciate it and thank you.
all right. Well, for all of you that are new to our show, welcome. Make sure to click the subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You can also head over to our podcast page, check out any back episodes that you've missed. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Just head over to our website, simplybeorganized.com. You can connect up with us there like every single place. Until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out.